Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by my good friend and esteemed colleague, Jeff Howe. You guys know what we're talking about. We're talking about Texas, Georgia, all right? There'll be different topics all throughout, but of course, we're talking about this matchup, Texas versus Georgia. We're going to be breaking it down. My man Jeff is going to get into some explosive plays in the run game and why that's important. And I'll end it with talking about just some general factors, because there's so many of them in this matchup between Texas and Georgia. All right, before we do that, let's thank our first sponsor, our friends over at SeatGeek, before we move on and dive into this matchup. Friends over at SeatGeek, they are here, folks, to give you the best absolute value on any ticket to any major sporting event or concert around. They got your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So if you look for the green dots, that means go. That's the good, right? If you see red, that's bad. That's trying to tell you to stay away from it. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. So whether it's college football, whether it's NFL, our friends over at SeatGeek, they have your back. Of course, they got a great deal for the OTF fans out there. Use the code OTF10. You see it right there on your screen, OTF10. All right, and you'll get 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code OTF10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you very much to our friends over at SeatGeek for sponsoring Football Theory. All right, Jeff, let's talk about it. I mean, the run game's going to be big. You got two of the best rush defenses in the country. Texas is top 5. I think Georgia's right around there, close to being a top 10 rush defense overall. What are your thoughts about how this thing is going to play out? This is a heavyweight matchup between those two rushing defenses, no doubt.
Yeah, my thing comes down to, Rod, how are you going to create explosive plays in the running game? And that's something that Texas has, quite frankly, struggled to do this year. And Georgia's okay at it. Like, they're not elite, but they're by no means terrible. They're kind of middle of the road in the conference when you start breaking down the metrics. But this is really where I started looking at it, Rod. I went to, I like to do deep dives into stats, and I started looking at just some of the basic run game stats. And I'm like, well, run games look about even, but the eye test tells me Georgia's had the better run game. And the stats where I see the separation, Rod, is second level yards. That's average yards per carry gained between 5 and 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And if you look at where both these teams rank in the SEC offensively, Texas is 11th in the SEC in second level rush yards, basically a little over 1 yard per carry in the second level. Georgia, a little bit better than Texas. They're 6th in the SEC, 1.107. The difference, though, is when you start looking at defensive second level yards, Georgia is the very best second level run defense in the SEC. 0.639 yards per attempt allowed on second level runs. So Georgia's not going to give you anything as far as the explosive runs go. As a matter of fact, on rushing attempts, Rod, of 10 or more yards, Georgia's the best in the SEC. Only 21 running plays Georgia's allowed this year of 10 or more yards. Oklahoma's right behind Georgia with 22. Now, this is where we get into our X factors for this game, because I mentioned Oklahoma. And we know Texas was able to establish the line of scrimmage and in the second half of that game, control the line of scrimmage against Oklahoma. Now, I think the difference in the two fronts, I think Oklahoma's more active on the defensive line. I think Georgia's linebackers are better than Oklahoma. So I don't know how you want to look at that, if it's a wash, or maybe the Texas offensive line is going to have a tougher matchup this week. So it's not impossible, Rod, that Texas can run the ball. You're just going to have to be really clean, and it's going to be on Trey Wisner and C.J. Baxter to understand, look, and I thought Trey Wisner did a better job of this as the Oklahoma game went on. Look, your running lane, they're going to close quick. These aren't going to be clean. At some point, I've heard coaches say this for a long time, Rod. I'm sure you have too. Hey, running back, at some point, you got to go be an athlete and make a guy miss in tight quarters to get the explosive run. So Georgia will not give you anything in the explosive run game. You're going to have to earn it. We'll see if Texas can earn it. But again, based on what they did against Oklahoma, it's not impossible.
That's why this topic is so fascinating. First of all, a little nugget I was thinking about, you talking about explosive runs. The most explosive run they had versus Georgia last year, out of the two runs, was a Arch Manning 21-yard scramble.
Yeah.
Out of empty formation. We'll talk about that later. But getting back to this, I think it is fascinating because ultimately, if you're Texas, this kind of leads to kind of one of the X factors. Do you even want to challenge that Georgia rush defense? And what I mean by that, of course, you have to run the ball because you have to have balance. But that's why I think you have to lead with the pass in this game versus Georgia. And by the way, everybody leads with the pass versus Georgia who has any success early on. And by the way, we'll talk about how Georgia starts a little slow, but Tennessee, they were over 60% pass rate early down pass rate. Bama was over 55%. Ole Miss was 60%. Florida was 53%. Hell, Texas in the SEC title game was over 60%. You got to lead with the pass. You can't lead with the run, especially for Texas. Because getting back to your point about run games, Texas doesn't have a diverse run game. The beauty of the Georgia run game, when you watch it, it's diverse. I'm kind of look for what are the one or two runs that they hang their hat on. They do it all real well. They do the inside zone, inside power, outside power, counter. They do it all. I mean, they do it all pretty well in the run game. Even the quarterback runs with Gunnar Stockton, quarterback draws, and some of that stuff. So that's why it's a good run game, because it's efficient and it's well-rounded. Texas does not have a well-rounded run game. If the outside zone ain't working, they pretty much ain't got much else they can hang their hat on. And that's the difference. That's why Georgia would have a little bit of the advantage, not a little bit, a lot of the advantage there when it comes to the run game. And Texas got the run game going. That's great. But you ran the ball against a Brent Venables defense for multiple years in a row. You were able to pop the same concept, the outside zone. Yep. You weren't able to run the outside zone on Georgia, either one of those matchups. So I think that's a Venables defense. That's a scheme-specific issue to me, and I think Georgia's going to be able to take that away, and what's Texas going to run with after that is going to be the question.
Yeah, here's the other thing for me too, Rod. Stuff rate is a big statistic that I look at, especially in this game. I mean, when you look at, I'll be honest, I don't even care to go back and look at the tackles for loss Georgia had in the two games last year. It was an astronomical number, and Texas just was behind the chain. It seemed like they lived behind the chains in both of those games. But I go back to the Vanderbilt game, and basically, stuff rate is the percentage of your running plays that are stopped for at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. Your stuff rate allowed against Vanderbilt was the second best it's been all season. I think like 16%. 15%, excuse me. 15%.
You led with the pass.
Yeah, 15% of your runs against Vanderbilt were stuffed. That's the second best outing you've had against a power conference defense other than Ohio State. You only have 5% of your runs that were stuffed against Ohio State. We know Ohio State played that a little differently. They're like, hey, if C.J. Baxter and Trey Wiseman are going to beat us, great. Arch Manning in this passing game are not going to beat us. We know Kirby's going to do what they do in Glenn Schumann. They're going to dial it up how they're going to dial it up. But, Rod, you start looking at some of the stuff rates, and you think about these games when the run games really gotten in trouble against Kentucky. 32% of your runs were stuffed. Against Oklahoma, 29%, Florida, 30%. That UTEP game, 21% of your runs were stuffed. So your stuff rate has to be around like 15%. And once you get into 20, especially 25 and on up to 30, basically if a third of your runs are getting stuffed, I don't think you have any chance to win this game. So you've got to, number one, control the line of scrimmage, but two, figure out a way to get those second level yards. So again, I want to reiterate this. It's not impossible, but it's going to be really hard to do. And I'll see your comment, Rod, in the quarterback run game. And I've watched Georgia, and I kind of figured this. I didn't think the disparity would be as big as it is. You look at Gunnar Stockton running the ball this year, 32 scrambles, 127 yards he's gained on scrambles. But you go to design runs, he's 28 for 217, according to Pro Football Focus. So, and I think what might be clouding some judgment here, Rod, you can correct me if I'm wrong or fill in the blanks or whatever. You look at Georgia running the ball this year, they haven't been super clean running the ball. Like you start looking at the body of work, and it's like, okay, their body of work will tell you, even when you start looking at the advanced statistics, look, it's been Gunnar Stockton on some of those read options where he's keeping it and they got a numbers advantage, or quite frankly, it's been Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowen's making something out of nothing. And I think Georgia's got two really good backs. So the difference is, though, against Mississippi State, that was far and away the cleanest Georgia's run game has been all year. They blocked it well. They read it well. The backs hit it well. They were able to get explosive runs, making guys miss at the second level and beyond. So I think if you're a Texas fan, I think really for the national media looking at it and the SEC media looking at it, I think that's clouding it a little bit because we haven't seen Georgia really do that all year, look that dominant running the football, and that's the last sample we got.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that was everybody had kind of career days. You start looking at it. Nate Frazier, he had career highs in yards at the contact, missed tackles force, 15 plus yard runs. I believe it was the highest average depth of target all season for Gunnar Stockton too. He had the most 20 plus yard throws of his career. Like it just like the offense peaked. Hopefully that's just Mississippi State and not the case rolling over into Texas. But getting back to your point though about the scrambling element and Gunnar Stockton in the run game. I think for Texas, to me, you gotta lead with the pass, and I said that, and I think that is big. That's part of the recipe that hopefully the new formula that they're using to kind of formulate an identity on offense. But against Georgia, the matchup that you can win is on the outside. Yeah. And Georgia's defense, just like Texas defense, they're both good rush defenses, except Texas complements a good rush defense with an elite pass rush. Georgia doesn't have that. Right. They don't have any elite pass rush. They have a sound defense. They have a really good tackling defense. So probably a lot of your perimeter screen game may not work as well or at all, potentially. So you may find other ways to capitalize on that. But that's the difference. Both of these secondaries are suspect, except Texas has a pass rush to at least try to alleviate some of the issues there. And Georgia doesn't necessarily have that. So if you're Texas, the formula, I know, although it's like seems weird, the formula is simple. You throw on Georgia, and you complement that with the run game. And you go look at the 100. They're 122nd in sack rate. They're 120th in pressure rate. I mean, that's where I go. And last season in the SEC title game, that was a lot of the recipe. Bama had a very similar recipe too. I think Bama averaged less than 4 yards per carry. You're not going to have a dominant run game versus Georgia, and I wouldn't even try. I think you can throw the football versus Georgia, and I would do it early, and I would do it often, and I would do it with certain concepts that you learned last year from that first matchup versus Georgia. And we'll get to that in a second. But running the ball versus Georgia, I get you. I think, and you stopping them is going to be big. I don't think you're going to be able to run the ball versus Georgia.
I think you have to almost look at it like take away the two Georgia games last year. I think you almost have to look at it like you looked at the Michigan game last year, where they had the two elite NFL defensive tackles. You said, look, they don't need to run it for 200 yards against Michigan, because if you try to do that, you're playing a game in a phone booth, and that's exactly what Sharon Moore and that defensive staff, that's what they want you to do. What Texas did, though, right in that game, they ran it well enough to where they never had to go away from it, and it complemented the pass game. And Texas really was able to get after Michigan with the pass. I think that's what you're going to have to do with Georgia. But the thing is, I'm with you. You're not going to have the athleticism advantage that you had against Vanderbilt on the perimeter. It's just going to be non-existent because Georgia can cancel you out. Where I think Texas has a chance in this game is, what's your path of least resistance? And I think Georgia has good players at safety, but I have seen teams attack Georgia's safeties. And there was a play early in that Mississippi State game, if you go back to it, when that was still a game, where Anthony Evans got KJ Bolden on a double move, and a smart move on his part, he just grabbed him and took the 15-yard penalty, because if he didn't, it would have been about an 80-yard touchdown. So you can get Georgia's safeties. They are susceptible in some areas. And if you're talking about the two corners, I'm definitely going to go tack DeMello Jones, who's coming off an injury. I'm going to mess with Dalen Everett as little as possible. And when you look at the Georgia pass game, Texas was able to hit some shots last year. It's just, can you protect the quarterback long enough? Does he have time to get rid of the ball? All that stuff that we talk about. But yeah, I'm with you, Rod. Texas can get after Georgia in the passing game, but we talked about this last week. All those cheat codes in Sark's offense. Sark has to have a 2024 Michigan, a 2023 Alabama. He's got to have one of those games. Pre-snap motion, shifts, bunch formations, targets to motion, all the stuff we talk about. You've got to make it as hard as possible for Georgia to make those IDs to where you can get the matchup you want.
That Michigan game, none of your running backs averaged over 4 yards per carry.
No.
Jerry Gibson was at 3.6, Weiss was at 3.8, and Jaden Blue was at 2.4. Your longest run was by riding wing or reverse. That's it. Like, that's legit. You're not going to be able to run the ball versus Georgia. Don't be stubborn and try to. High early game, early down pass rate, and you must inundate them, as we just talked about, with a ton of cheat codes. And here are the cheat codes. I'll give them to you right now. So Sark learned, and we talked about this, about how aggressive Georgia is. And he realized his slow developing concepts, they don't work, so don't try them. Your Sark screen, don't try it. It doesn't work. Don't try the outside zone as much because it just ain't going to work versus Georgia. But you need things that pop quickly, and you need things that are going to use their aggression against them. Now, I may be the one that made this up, but I call these things ag beaters. They're aggression beaters. And these are double moves. These are, whip routes. These are orbit returns, jet returns. Remember the corn dog play that Andy Reid ran in the Super Bowl. Texas ran it against Georgia, by the way, to score with Isaiah Bond. It was the first touchdown they scored against Georgia. Essentially, they ran corn dog, all right, in motion, try to zigzag. Those types of plays, right? You're trying to use their aggression against them because they are a fast flow defense. I counted 8 such plays in the SEC title game. One was a penalty, it was a pass interference call. It was a stalk block and go to Helm, and they missed the throw, but it would have been open. Should have used it. They got 7 such other plays, got averaged over 15 yards per attempt on those plays. All right, you have 15 yards per attempt. You actually your third down conversion rate was 100% on those. And you if you go look at the money downs, because you had one of them on a 4th down whip route, a jet return, you were 4-4 money downs with what I call ag beaters. And Sark knows this, by the way, because think about this. You had a 22-yarder on your first third down. Think about this is another big X factor. Third downs. You were 15% on money downs in the first matchup. You were 3 of 20 on money downs, period. You were 40% on money downs in the second matchup. And what was the key? Your first money down was a 3rd and 4. You did a 22-yard reception. It was a reverse whip route by DeAndre Moore. All right. If you go look at your second third down was an interception, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. You go look at a 3rd and 14. Was your second drive of the game. You had a 3rd down. He dialed up a double move, target to motion to Matthew Golden. You had a 3rd and 3 late in the 4th quarter. One of these ag beaters. It was a 41-yard stalk slant touchdown to DeAndre Moore. He knows this. That's why he's dialing up these concepts specifically on 3rd down, on critical downs. He knows, all right, this is the down where I got to outwit Kirby Smart. His guys are really prepared. They're real dialed in. They know exactly what my staples are. I got to use that against them, which is why he's using them on money downs. Yes. Don't stop, Sark. Play the hits. Be stubborn and bullish about these things. They work over and over again. Don't just use it 8 times. Put it in the damn game plan 15 times. Like I'm telling you, they work against this defense because they're really aggressive. And this defense ain't as good as the ones in years past. So when they screw up, it can end up being a really big play for you.
And I think the other thing Texas has too, right? If you go back and look at that SEC champ, not so much the first game, but the SEC championship, if you're just cleaner in the red zone and your kicking situation doesn't let you down, Texas probably wins that game. I think they do win that game. Like they played well enough to win it. If you just weren't completely inept in those 2 areas. But with Arch's athleticism, his ability to extend the play, the options he gives you in the red zone and down around the goal line, which we've seen some of that evolve. Go back and look at the touchdown pass to C.J. Baxter against Vanderbilt and the reliability of Mason Shipley. You kind of got those 2 elements this year. Not saying Texas is just elite in either one, but those 2 areas for you right now in a game like this should be much more reliable than they were last year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that too. And something else that we got to talk about too. So I'm talking about, Texas and the cheat codes they can use. And you brought this up when we were texting about it. The scrambling ability of Arch Manning has got to play a big role here, and it can be a huge X factor. Here's Arch versus Power 4 teams in the scramble and scramble drill. Over 12 yards per attempt in the scramble drill, over 9 yards per rush when he scrambles. You're talking about over 10 yards. You're talking about 10 yards per play. Anytime a scramble happens or a scramble drill, basically with Arch, they should embrace that with Kirby. Kirby will be expecting this, by the way. So it's not going to take Kirby by surprise that he can scramble. Kirby's already brought it up, by the way. Yeah. But the point is, if you have to utilize it at one point early so that he puts the spy on him, because that'll give you favorable numbers in the back end, in the matchups. He's not gonna let you just run wild with that dude. Trust me, he remembers that 21-yard run. By the way, the longest run Texas had against Georgia is Arch Manning scrambling. By the way, he's a 21-yard run.
And if you look at just scramble yards this year, just raw scramble yards, Arch, according to Pro Football Focus, with 182, that's 6th among SEC quarterbacks. The only SEC quarterbacks with more scramble yards: Taylon Green, Diego Pavia, Marcel Reed, Lenore Sellers, and then Jackson Arnold, which, considering how much he's playing, Arch should pass him and move into the top 5 at some point here pretty soon. But, I mean, you get the point. Arch Manning is one of the better scrambling quarterbacks in the SEC, period, point blank, end of story.
Yep. No doubt about it. Totally agree. Like I said, you got to use that early on. All your cheat codes, you have to come out swinging. You cannot come out conservative because Georgia starts slow. Here's a little nugget on Georgia. In the first half, 74th in points allowed per drive in the first half, and 106 in success rate allowed in the first half. They're 102nd in first quarter points allowed. They some reason, and Georgia fans been complaining about it all year. Man, they start slow. Texas, you need to start fast because Georgia is also, just like Texas, they're a second half team. They actually kind of get stronger as the game goes.
Yeah,
you need to come out swinging. He did that in the SEC title game. Came out swinging. And I think you got to do that again. That's why I think you got to lead with the pass. You used a little bit of tempo last year too when you got good first downs. You were like, let's go. I know he knew exactly what he wanted to call. This is why this is a deep in your bag game for Sark. The bag should be empty by the end of the game. And I went back and watched that Georgia game, the SEC title game. Targets to bunch, which is really good for Texas this year. Not over 9 yards per attempt, 40% conversion rate on third downs, 18% explosive play rate. On the season versus Power 4 teams, 67% completion percentage, 10 yards per attempt on targets to bunch, and 50%, over 50% completion percentage, or at least conversion rate, I should say, on third down. It works during the season. It works against Georgia. You should not, if 50% of your targets are not to bunch, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, Rod, like even in the Mississippi State game, you could see certain things that have given Georgia problems this year. I already mentioned the double move that Anthony Evans, where he got grabbed by KJ Bolden. But like you go back early in the game, and we saw with Mississippi State, like it's Jeff Lebby, it's that veer and shoot. They went down and scored on the opening drive. Like Georgia had trouble handling Mississippi State's tempo. The two things, and to your point, where the game got away from Mississippi State was really two reasons. One, well, and their defense couldn't stop Georgia, but there were really two reasons why the game got away from an offensive standpoint. One, they were terrible on money downs, and two, they couldn't take care of the football. So, and you go back to the first game, that's when Texas got themselves in a hole. They weren't very good on money downs. They didn't do a good job taking care of the football. Did a better job of it in the SEC championship game. That's a big reason why that game was much closer.
Yeah, and in the SEC title game, and speaking of tempo, giving them issues, Tennessee ran a little bit of tempo, gave them some issues early, and Tennessee did something that nobody else has really done. They took shots successfully down the field. I want to say they were like 5 or 6 on 20-plus yard bombs. They actually had one of those leak plays, but to the wide receiver, basically, the Texas ran basically with Parks and Livingston, the drag wheel route or the drag seam. They ran that with a wide receiver and scored on it. We know that's one of Sark's favorite concepts, which kind of falls in kind of ag beta category, because when that guy tried to pick him up on the drag, the Georgia defender came down and tried to jump it. And he went right upfield and went right by him. So I'm with you. I think you got to take shots when you're one-on-one with those Georgia DBs, because they're going to give you one-on-one man coverage every now and then. That's just the way Georgia plays. They're aggressive. You do have to take the shot. Even if your guy's not open, you got to give your guy a shot and see if you can get a PI, like you pointed out, or you can get a jump ball a contested catch situation, and one of your guys can go make a play. Like you do have, every now and then you do have to take that shot. Sark did it in the SEC title game a little bit. But you need to do it successfully in this matchup too.
And I think, Rod, I'll close with this. I think for Arch, this will be his toughest test to date because of all the stuff with the Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann defense that you've got to deal with. You got to deal with their simulated pressures. They'll bring double A gap pressures. Like, they're going to show him a lot of different looks, a lot of different blitzes. So not only does he have to feel the pressure and adapt accordingly and read it right and make the right decisions in the pass game, but as Sark talked about this in the Thursday Zoom call, Georgia does such a good job caging the quarterback in the run game and preventing scrambles. There are going to be opportunities to scramble, but he's got to make those right decisions, because it may look like he's got a chance to scramble, but CJ Allen and those linebackers are so good they can erase it really quick. So fair or not, a lot of it's going to be on Arch. A lot of the success or failure of this offense is going to be on Arch. Hey, in the heat of the moment, did he make the right decision?
It's a good point too. And think about the way they break tendency, because last year they only blitzed. I want to say they blitzed in the first matchup, according to Pro Football Focus, around 35% of the time. and that was lower than their average blitz rate that season. So they dropped their blitz rate against Texas. They increased their disguise rate.
Yes.
They were in disguise. They said close to 40% of their defensive snaps they disguised. On the season, they were a little under 25% disguise rate, pre-snap disguise rate. So they increased the disguise, but they did. And I would say Archer's great versus the blitz. 60% completion percentage, 9.2 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions versus the blitz this year. So if they blitz him, maybe Archer will be ready for that. We shall see. They get some blitz beaters. All right, there you go. That's some X factors for the matchup. We got more, but maybe we're running out of time. All right, so thank you, Matthew. We appreciate him behind the scenes. He's a real MVP. Let's thank our last sponsor before we get out of here. Let's thank our friends over at Advanced Pain Care from two legendary Lifetime Longhorns.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right. Before we get here, one last question, actually, Jeff. How does Sark break tendency in this game? Because to win games, I always say you got to break tendency. How do you think he breaks tendency? Because Kirby's gonna be ready for damn near everything.
Yeah.
I got an idea. This is mine.
Okay.
They haven't used it a lot this year. They were really good at it with Quinn toward the end of his career. Great at it when Sam Ehlinger was here, even before Sark got here. Empty formation with Ryan Niblett potentially as your running back to
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Because it's one of those things where they don't have a great pass rush, so you're not really worried about that, and you want to exploit them in the passing game anyway. And Bama used a lot of it, actually, versus when you move Bama.
And here's the deal with empty formation, too, where, you can utilize – honestly, if I'm Sark, I kind of look at how your defense has been attacked, and I may try to do some of that. I mean, some of those mesh concepts over the middle of the field. Make Georgia's linebackers cover. Like, we know they're great coming downhill. Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp are from the same kind of school, and we know Will Muschamp's my football spirit animal. But, man, no linebacker just wants to operate in space and cover and have to worry about their drops. So, man, I make it – if Texas can figure out a way to manipulate Georgia's linebackers and make it really tough on their linebackers, I think that's your best path to victory.
Yep.
However, you can do that and going empty and running mesh concepts and attacking the middle of the field, that might be the best way to do it.
Just throwing it out there. He's got to break tendency somehow. You got to have a surprise. You ain't going to just beat Georgia running your staples because they're going to be ready for all that.
No.
So how does he do it? All right. Good stuff, Jeff. As always, appreciate your expertise. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, the real MVP. Thank you to our friends at Advanced Pain Care. Thank you to SeatGeek as well. For Jeff and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.